Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hopefully you are doing well. I am back on this national holiday here in the United States. Happy Thanksgiving to all of my U.S. viewers, especially if you're joining us after the fact, but happy Thanksgiving. Today is the day. Now, I'm already getting some drop frame information from vMix. vMix appears to be having issues. Now, I could be aligning with new satellites or whatever it's going to be, but, you know, Starlink. But I can confidently say that it is probably not my network anymore because, thankfully, I am proud to announce that I am hardlined all the way down to the main station, the main incoming router from Starlink. And so that's pretty exciting. And I definitely see buffering over on YouTube, so that's kind of annoying. But today might be a busy day. I know that my kids are downstairs playing on the internet, and so there's a good chance that they're interfering with that. But it's going to be what it's going to be today. So we will. Maybe I'll record this as well on a hard drive because today is going to be a brief show. I just want to tell you about kind of what I have done to get things stable again here in the office, and so it's created a much better workflow, and dealing with large video and all that sort of thing, it's been a lot better over the past week or so. So last week we talked about moving to a new router, an independent router that just does that thing. And I had picked the TP-Link router. I believe it's the ER605. And that router has performed exceptionally for my DHCP, my reservation list, and a bunch of other things. It's been really handy to use. And in step with that, I also ended up buying a couple of managed switches, just small 5-porters. Now, in the NDI world, I would not suggest going with anything with smart in the title, even though they're inexpensive and portable. Some people have good reception, have pretty good results with a small router like that, or a small switch like that. But in all of my troubleshooting, I just always ended up finding more problems with things that had smart in the title because they weren't exceptionally smart. What they meant was the switches had small features that were enabled, and I can actually show you some of that on now that I've got one here. I actually have two of them in my network. But what am I using it for? Well, I'll explain a little bit more in the chain of how the data actually comes upstairs as a part of today's show, because we definitely want to kind of cover that. What's going on, Randy? I'm sorry you can't stick around, man. First comment, unfortunately, I can't stay. Have a great show. Have a good show with successful troubleshooting. I appreciate that. Always appreciate you jumping in and hanging out. Hey, what kind of 5-port managed switch did you get? So I actually also went with a TP-Link switch for that. I can give you the exact make and model because I know what the IP addresses are because my DHCP is assigning those. So let's just jump over to those real quick. And that is, here's the username and password is there. It's actually my home network is actually appears on paper to be a real legit network and not just all built on Wi-Fi. It's the SG105E version 5. So that is, now I've been using those for a couple of days now. In the full install, they arrived mid this week. Let's say early this week. So I think it was Tuesday they showed up, and they actually do have a user interface. They have a user UI. You can go in, you can turn off snooping, you can do a few things. And so that part I like, but I have assigned them both IP ranges through my DHCP reservation list. I've assigned them both IP addresses so that I know where they are, first of all, but that if I ever want to disconnect them and take them on the road or do whatever, I don't have to do any customization. They can just jump on the new network. So that's very convenient. I see the data, they are gigabit switches, which was one of my requirements. They also have a model that's a 10 gig switch, but nothing in my house is 10 gigs right now. And so, especially the thing that I'm about to talk about, but it's not 10 gigs all the way through. But I did make some interesting discoveries when I started plugging devices directly into switches. Most of the time, my network used to run at my old house in Michigan, used to run mostly off of Wi-Fi, but I had quite adequate coverage. And for what I was doing, it wasn't really a big deal. The difference here at this house is because the bottleneck really is the ISP. I'm finding that sharing internet throughout my house is not quite as seamless as it was when I was running. What did I have? AT&T, I think? I had a Spectrum internet. And they were okay back then. Back in Michigan, Spectrum was all right in my neighborhood, and it was fairly consistent, although when the power went out, the whole system went down because the box up the road also required power, which was really annoying because I had everything wired for a generator. So with Starlink, if the power goes out or whatever, I have a generator and I can power that thing independently of, the grid and still get internet, which is the beautiful thing about having internet off a satellite. So I'll probably keep Starlink for that reason, actually for multiple reasons, but that's a nice benefit. Although I may not continue to pay I may go month to month and just do a mobile plan, but we'll see. So what is going on, Angus? Hopefully you are doing well. I figured maybe that we would see you today, since today is not a holiday for you. I love the, who was it that did the comedy sketch that said, there are no NHL games today across the NHL because in America they're celebrating Thanksgiving, or as we like to call it in Canada, Thursday. So welcome aboard. Big fan. Yes, the SG 105. Where did that? The SG105E, and it is a managed switch. It, however, is not a layer 2 switch. Okay, so you can go in and you can see the data, the packets moving through and doing a bunch of stuff, but it's not layer 2 or it's not layer 3. I should put it that way. It's not layer 3 where you can assign, it doesn't have its own DHCP on board, but it is layer 2 where you can log in and you can monitor things. It does have iGPM snooping. You can enable, disable, and a few other things. So I'm happy to show you that if you really want to see it, Randy. I know you got a jet, but it does actually give you a few options for ports. It gives you, where are we here? Here we go. Yeah, it gives you the ability to kind of, first of all, it gives you reporting on the ports, which is nice. Snooping, enable, disable. You can set up ports as lags, which is, I think, actually, like, some people might say, well, that's a standard feature. Actually, for the price point on this thing, which was like $50 American, that is not too bad, not too shabby. Port stats gives you all that data. You can set up mirroring. You can do cable testing, loop prevention. You know, if you plug in the same Ethernet cable to two ports in it, it'll shut those ports off. That's nice. VLAN configuration, it does have some of that. So if you need to manually set that up on this side, you could do that. Some of the VLAN options. The quality of service modes, I don't see a place where you can turn that off. You can either do all or you have to pick one option. But anyways, bandwidth control, this is where you would throttle things down per port. And then storm control, this is more of a prevention of attacks and stuff like that. And that's it. I mean, that's top to bottom. You could name it something. So this is the Switch that my kids are on downstairs playing Nintendo Switch. And I'll go through that in just a second, just to tell you the advantages of switching all of that. Hey, I just finished a great show with a great crew, several of whom work on NHL games. That's cool. I got to help my van. I got to get my van to the shop. Looks like it's head gasket time. Oh, my goodness. Yikes. Good luck with that. And I pray that it is not too pricey for you. Oh, hey, I don't have my Ember mug this morning, but today's sponsor is not Kibo Group. Kibo Group does some good work over in Africa, growing coffee and providing jobs to a whole lot of people. And so if you are ever interested in buying good coffee and supporting a good work, look up Kibo Group, Kibo, Kibo Group. They're out of, actually, I don't know where they're out of. They have a lot of groups that work at universities and on university campuses, and they supply coffee. They have coffee shops on those campuses, and then those proceeds go. So, good cause and pretty good coffee. It's not Kibo coffee this morning, however, but it is a Kibo mug, and I actually really like this one, even though it has been well used, well loved. So, Kibo Group International is our non-sponsor today. So yes, I'm using a couple of these switches. I bought one and then realized I quite liked it. Now, here's the layout, okay? I have a bonus room upstairs above my garage, which is traditionally where the bonus room is. And I've had wireless adapters running wireless access points, basically doing MIMO between the router downstairs, which is a good 125 feet away, around corners and through drywall and through floor joists and all that stuff. And so I've had a one up here in the bonus room, and I had one down the hall next to my daughter's room, which is probably 75 or 80 feet away. And those two would talk to each other fine. And then that one is kind of directly above the main router. And that was running a Nighthawk, Netgear Nighthawk MR70 series. So the router is MR70, and then the satellites are MS70, 72s or something like that. Anyways, 70s, because the combo pack that I bought was the MR72, which means that you get a router 1 and you get a satellite 2. And so the combo pack that I bought, that wasn't great. It didn't really cover anything in this house. And so I thought, I will go and I will buy an additional pack, but I'll get an MR73, meaning that there were 2 satellites and 1 additional router. And I didn't use the router, but I plugged in the other satellites and synced them up. And for the most part, it was okay. But man, I had a lot of problems with that setup. They were always disconnecting. They're having trouble talking. And, I fell for it. I fell for the thing that you tell people not to do, which is rely on wireless if you're at all serious about using and utilizing the bandwidth that's provided to you from your ISP. Now, many of you are going to have internet service providers that are providing multiple hundreds of megs down and maybe in the ballpark of 30, 40, 50, 100 megs up. Whereas I have Starlink, and so we're anywhere from 250 all the way down to 60 megs down, and then somewhere in the 10 megs up range. And now, Mr. Musk is launching satellites at an alarming rate, at an exciting rate, but there's a lot of them going up quickly. And if you look at the Starlink grid in space, it is impressive how many are up there. So he is always launching new satellites, and that, if you're doing 20 a week or 20 every other week, or maybe let's just say 40 a month or even 20 a month, you're still putting up over 200 satellites a year. And that, one of those is going to probably be enhancing the network that you're in. And so they're quickly ramping up global internet support. And it's practically in every country around the world that will permit it. So I've got Starlink. I've got just the standard Starlink package, the regular satellite, the non-mobile, the residential one. It's mounted to the side of my house. I have a clear view of the southern sky. I have aligned it correctly. It always comes back and says everything looks great. It's as good as it can be, which is great. Only a few obstructions. I'm fortunate to have my house facing south, and so I put on the back side of the house above the roof, the roof line, and it has a clear view past the pitch of my roof up to the southern sky. So it's not obstructed at all, and very little obstruction, like 10%. And so looks great, getting good reception, but as you will probably notice on this show, at some point I'll freeze up or buffer or do something, and that's probably because we're switching satellites. And that is the best it's going to be, I think. I think for the internet service provider, that's as good as it's going to be on that side. But I cannot then have problems inside. I have to have basically a home run all the way back to the Starlink router, which provides the external IP address for my home, into my router, which I did a show last week on, which was the TP-Link ER605. So since putting in the router, the TP-Link router that is specifically for routing and issuing IP addresses, runs a DHCP server, is the DHCP reservation list. The difference that I noticed is probably an increase of about 70 or 80% in performance, going from the Netgear Nighthawk MR70 to the TP-Link ER605, and a noticeable jump in performance. And look, I'm staring at my screens all the time. I'm testing speeds. I'm streaming. I'm doing a bunch of things. I'm talking to people because I live out in the sticks, and so I'm talking to people on services like StreamYard and a few other places. And, I definitely notice a difference, an increase in performance. And so actually the stream that seems to be struggling is Twitch. So that's good to know. So I definitely notice a difference in performance because I'm watching this all the time. So what could I do to make the internal network a lot more solid than, what I currently have? Hey, you're happy with that little switch then? Let me get to that. So just real quick while you're off to fix the gasket. So what can I do to make things a lot more solid? Well, unfortunately, when this is a new build home, and I don't get too excited. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. That's the only way I could afford it. So it's a new build home, and the builder chose to put coax through the house like 1995 instead of Ethernet like 2025, which I would expect in this day and age. We're almost at 2025, by the way, everybody. I know that I said that early, but I would expect them to be running parallel, coax and Ethernet, or Ethernet only, Cat 6. But for some reason, he didn't put Ethernet in the house, and it's probably just a cost-effective thing. This is not a custom build. This was a cookie-cutter build. So, he's just putting these up. And they didn't put any Ethernet in this house, but they did put coax. And I thought, man, I really wish that they hadn't put coax. Like, if they're going to spend the money on copper, I wish they would have done it on Ethernet, especially because Ethernet is so inexpensive these days. So we're talking like 20 cents a drop usually. But anyway, I digress. So I got looking around and thought, is there a device that I could utilize the coax network to make a wired network? And sure enough, there is. So I got Googling things, you do your research and you stumble upon something like this, which is what I ended up getting. This is Trendnet, which I've actually had pretty good success with, bar one device, and I'll talk about that. But Trendnet, they do all right with their stuff, and you're not buying this for an enterprise, you're buying this for your house. These are very plastic, okay, plastic case, single chip board inside, but a Trendnet Ethernet over coax adapter. And what this does is it basically turns your previous coax network, which maybe some of you are using, but probably very few of you are, using your old coax network that is installed in any house past, 1980 probably, or earlier, I guess. And it converts that coax into a ones and zero network that can then be decoded on the other side. And so I purchased a 2-pack of these. I did get the Mocha, which I've watched a bunch of videos and everybody called it that, so MOCA, the Mocha 2.0 gigabit LAN port network. And the 2.5 is actually a little bit faster, however, substantially more expensive. And I was not convinced that this was really going to work. And so the internals of this device are a little bit quicker if you go with the 2.5, but I just went with the 2.0 just to kind of give it a go. So for $85 or whatever, you get a pair of them. And this is literally what they look like. However, they are no bigger than the palm of your hand. Like, they're probably like this, okay? They're like, I could do this with them. So they're deceptively small, but online they look like they're, big boxes or whatever that you could mount or something. You can't. They're just tiny little guys. So we just zip tie them down. But these two little Mocha adapters I purchased, and then I have purchased a coax termination kit because I was going to have to terminate all these ends that I was going to use for my network. Now, when the new build happened, they ran all the cables out the side of the house, and then they just left them bow dangling outside. And so that's not going to work. So I went outside, I bought a little one of those like AT&T boxes that are mounted on the side of your house, and I coiled up all the cables, and I put them in there, and I zip tied it shut, and I left it. Well, conveniently, it's actually a little too small for what it is, but conveniently, I went out there, and you're able to mount an actual splitter that you would traditionally use in coax installs. However, the thing to know about those splitters is it's required that let me just go here. It's required that you have one that is Mocha compatible, mostly because they all operate on different frequencies. And so if you're going to convert your network over, I strongly recommend you go with the Holland Electronics 3-way balance splitter. It's a Mocha compliant. It has the right hertz range, okay, the right frequency range for these coax signals to work with your network. So if you know how to terminate coax cables, this is a very easy process. If you don't, some trial and error is required. I strongly suggest that you get a kit that you can try out several. If you only need to do, 1 to 3, that's easy peasy. Let me just open up this order again and show you the kit that I have. And I bought a tester just because you got to make sure that your cables are working. But let me tell you something, man. You know how when I was working in the NDI industry, and I'll just call it that for now, when I was working in the NDI industry, I would say things like, don't buy things that are plug and play, right? So this is the little kit that I bought. Look, it's less than $20. I bought it for less than $20, and it was not a Black Friday deal, by the way. So that's kind of its going rate. But I bought this little termination kit. It comes with these little ends that are pretty much universal check your coax cable, the writing on the side of the coax cable, and make sure that it is one of these. But this is the one that I bought. Less than $20. You get all the tools, all the things you need. You even get a little carrying case that comes with it. And then watch the YouTube videos. Put in this coax cable crimper and watch the ones that are actually guys teaching you how to do it, not just the promo video, because the promo video is this one, and it's not very useful. But if you don't know how to terminate coax cables, don't let that be intimidating to you, because it's really basic. And I was thinking this while I was doing this, is that I would always say, don't ever buy products based on somebody telling you that it's plug and play, because nothing in this world is plug and play. And if it is, it's not high performance. If you terminate these cables correctly, this thing is. I can confidently say, with all my installer, all my networking background, all my NDI world background, all my troubleshooting years of doing support desks at the college and then support desk at Bird Dog and then on and on and on and on. This thing is 100%, it's gigabit all the way through. I have pinged devices on the other side and do get gigabit speeds over this adapter. And crimping coax cables and making sure, then testing them. So you just buy a straight little tester like this guy, and it just lights up the end. Now, I bought mine cheaper than $32, so wait for that to go on sale. You might be able to, this is Klein Tool, though. This is like the real deal when it comes to making cables. They're a real legit company and not a knockoff. But this has a little light tester on it. It comes with a bunch of adapters that you can do multiple tests with. But let me tell you something. If you get the hang of crimping coax cables, that becomes very easy, very fast. And then you test them, and then you connect them to this. You do your incoming signal. So from your router into your Mocha adapter, one of these. Okay, so it's not a transmitter receiver. It's just an adapter. They all talk together. You go into that from your router, from your DHCP or whatever you're using, and then out of this through coax. Okay, the LAN light will light up. Out of that into coax. From there into this device on the inside, which is the top, right? Up here. And then out of this into the other one on the other side of your network, right here, into that coax jack, and then LAN out into your switch and the rest of your network. This will hardline your network over pre-existing coax as long as the coax is relatively good and not crimped or cut anywhere. This will give you, this will extend your network into those rooms that the Wi-Fi is not cutting it. Then you have a wired line, and you can do something like go into a access point that will do multiple SSID broadcasts, meaning like Google used to have a device that did this, the Google Wi-Fi ones. You could hardline them in, and then they would broadcast your SSID. The Nighthawk Netgear ones do not, by the way. Their Ethernet port on the back of their satellites is out only, which is so stupid. But these little Mocha devices, super inexpensive, less than $100, will get you connected to a room and extend your network over the hard line, and you get true gigabit speeds through them. I'm very impressed. All right, I don't know if you can tell by the way that I'm talking, but I'm very impressed that that's the way that they are working for me, because they definitely are. So much so that I went out and bought an additional one, and there are various brands. I've used Trendnet before, and I kind of like them for the cheap network world, and so that's what I picked. There is another one. Hytron is another version, this one, and they are pretty good. But I went out and bought a single adapter, one of these. Didn't go out. I ordered it on Amazon. And I then plugged it into a second location in my living room to provide internet, hardline internet, to my network box, which runs my entertainment system and everything on the TV. And bought a little switch, one of those TP-Link switches that I was talking about, and found out that a lot of those devices in that network box are only 10100. Who knew? But I bought one of these, went into a little switch, and then broke it out into a bunch of devices. And the kids are I bought a little cradle, like a $20 cradle for their switch that has an Ethernet port on it. And their online experience with their friends back in Michigan is a whole lot more stable. Like substantially stable. And so like a big jump forward, I think. And they don't get kicked off as often, and so they don't notice the difference, but they don't notice that their friends, aren't disappearing from the game randomly. So that's all running over this. Now, everything is talking back and forth over the coax. It's not transmitter receiver. It's a two-way street. And I went from this device, so out, this is going up here to the bonus room, which is supplying me internet here at the desk. Well, then I just connected the one in the living room to the next one and terminated the cable outside, plugged it in, and that one came online. And they work together and they're not taking turns. Everything's talking at the same time. It's literally joining the network together. So I wanted to get the proper Mocha compliant, and every video that I saw, the guys were really recommending these Holland. There are multiple ones out there, but they were recommending these Holland ones, and I thought, well, for $10, that's probably a risk I'm willing to take in terms of money. So mount that outside, terminate the cables. I learned how to terminate proper coax. The trick with this, let me just tell you, there are lots of YouTube videos, especially the Klein Tools video of the guy doing it. He pushes it into the end and he crimps it down. He's like, and now we're good. It's not that simple. When you are putting the jack, so you got to properly cut the end. All right. Now that little yellow tool there will properly cut the appropriate length for the coax cable. You put it in just up to the side of the unit and you spin it around, and that cuts off not only the inner shield but the outer shield to the coax cable, and it leaves the proper amount, the proper length of copper out the end. Those ends though, those little coax ends with the screws on them, the compression ends, you need to really work in the coax cable to that back and forth and make sure that the outer jacket of the insulation for the copper line, okay, so there is a outside like weatherproof jacket that comes off, but then inside there's a silver sleeve that's protecting, that's basically like a insulator that's protecting that copper cable that's on the very middle. You got to make sure that silver sleeve is flush with the inside of that screw on end. And so you kind of have to work it back and forth. You can't just stick it in there and crimp it down like the guy on the video does. You really need to make sure that it is flush with the inside of that. And that's going to take some pressure, and be really careful, because when you're pushing on that little copper end is going to stick out just past that screw on, and that little screw for the coax connection, and it will stab you. So I can attest that it will stab you, and that thing is sharp, and you might get hurt. So be very diligent, but you got to provide some actual pressure, because if you don't, then it won't go in correctly, and then when you crimp it down, that end is just going to fall off. So be sure that silver jacket, be sure that you cut it correctly first. That's number one. Be sure you cut the end of the coax cable correctly first. Then be sure that silver jacket gets worked into the connector, right, so that's flush with the inside of the little screw on, I don't know what it is, like a nut or whatever for that coax end. This little guy right here, that's right behind my head. That's not convenient. These guys right here, that needs to be flush on the inside. It'll be very obvious when you're doing it, what I'm talking about here. Be flush on the inside, and then you use that tool right there. That's fully adjustable, by the way. But you use that little tool and you crimp it down. That's the easiest part of the whole deal. I kind of wish it made like a clicking sound, but it's just like open and shut. It's just a hinge, and so it's not very satisfying. But it does come with this handy little bag, which is helpful. It doesn't fit anything else in the bag, unfortunately, but it does come with that little bag. I wonder where that screwdriver went. I haven't seen that in a while. So anyway, once you crimp that down and you then use a little tester, a coax tester, then, oh, look, you can actually buy the tester and the tool. Anyway, this little tester works great, by the way. I could recommend it. I own it and use it. You put the little, where are they here? Do we get a picture of them? Let's see. Yeah, these right here. So you put these little ends on your newly terminated end of the coax, and then you go outside to where those lines are going, and you can test. First of all, you can find out which one is which, because it will light up that it is connected when you get to that one. So I went outside. All my coax ends go outside into that box that I was explaining from, that AT&T box. And I terminated all those ends. And that was great practice, by the way, because I could stand on the ground and do it at eye level and not have to stand behind a TV and try and do it. So outside, I practiced a few. I ruined a bunch of ends. Truth be told, I need to buy some more coax ends if I ever need to do this again, because I used about 20 in this project. But I terminated all of those cables, and then I would go through and test them with that little tester. And when I got to the one that was the one, behind the TV here in the bonus room, it would light up blue because that was the one that I had plugged in. And that's great. There's a little light on the front of the unit that says pass. And if you do multiples, they'll all light up at the same time. But I had the blue end. And so when I got to the correct cable, it lit up blue. And then I would plug that into that Holland electronics end. And I knew, okay, that's the cable that's going up to the bonus room. So that needs to go into out number 1. And then I did the same thing in the living room. And that went to out number 2. And this one's currently open because I don't have another one of those boxes yet. I don't know of a room that I would really need it in, other than if I wanted to connect, like if I was ever going to hang a TV in the master bedroom or something like that. But I don't think the boss will permit that. So we're good to go. And then I did the same here with the incoming from the Starlink router connection. Same thing there, and I knew which was which. And this just mounts inside, by the way. This mounts inside the AT&T box outside, and make your connections, close up the box, and you're good to go. All right, Angus, I've been neglecting you. Our house had essentially no low voltage wiring, a few phone jacks, and that's it. Mocha adapters are great. I have a running over Ethernet over RG6 out to my garage. There you go. So Angus is doing this live. Tying back to our discussion about the Wi-Fi AP self-healing. That was the cable that got cut this summer. Oh, well, there you go. Circle gets the square. I went a little fancier with my coax termination kit. I went with a Klein. Ooh, spared no expense. You're like John Hammond over there in Jurassic Park. It works like a charm. The little crimper is easily the nicest compression crimper that I have ever used. Yeah, I mean, if you spend some money, you can buy some really nice stuff. I know 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I was working for a university, and we had coax everywhere, and people's TVs would be plugged into it and whatever. Man, those were the days. And so I tried to learn how to crimp it there, but YouTube didn't have quite the library that it does today. So I wasn't able to necessarily consult the experts. And so I don't think I did it right for quite a while. I don't think that it worked. My crimping tools worked, but we had a really nice one there that had a real satisfying kind of, feel to it when you crimped it down. I was going to show you one other thing that I had. Oh, I bought coax cables, and I know that sounds like I'm living in the past, but I wanted to make a solid connection, and I don't just have a bunch of extra coax laying around. I didn't want to make coax cables. I wanted to buy something that was specific, mostly because the coax that comes out to these endpoints are behind televisions. And so I have mounts on those TVs that are accordions, and they move around and whatever, but I wanted to buy some nice 90-degree coax cables that would then flush mount basically to the wall and then go down off the wall and into the adapter. And I ran it through, And I ran it through the wall. So ran it down through the wall and then into the Mocha adapter directly, and that worked really well. So if I jump over here and I put this here, these cables I can attest, the Blue Riggers, they work great. I bought a couple of these. They're inexpensive, 90 degrees. You can do 90 to 90 if you need to for some reason. But one end, the straight end's going into the Mocha adapter, and then this guy is coming off the wall. And that keeps everything nice and tidy, flush against the wall. There's no obstructions, anything like that. Big fan of that decision. And they're really like high quality cables. They're RG6s. So, they're going to be plenty for what it is that I need to do. And I can promise you that they do work great. Now, let me kind of wrap this portion up about these things. So these, again, let me just drive this home here. These devices, if you have Coax in your home and you are struggling with internet, do not believe the lie that everything's Wi-Fi these days. It really isn't. All right. If you're here as a holdover from the NDI days where I was talking bird dog every day and doing support stuff, which, by the way, they have a new show. A buddy of mine, Anthony, is doing that show, and I think he's already done one. And so you check that out. It's more sales-driven, not support-driven, from what I gather. But they'll be talking about new features. They'll be trying to get the word out about bird dog, and I'm happy for them. I hope that works out well. And Anthony's going to do a great job. He always does. And so be sure to check him out. Check out his other channels, too. He does a lot of technical talk. He's wearing bird dog swag, so I wonder if he's actually like a bird dog employee. But all good. He does a great show all the time. He does all sorts of tech talk stuff. So if you're interested in streaming world, Anthony Barocas, who normally does things on Tuesdays, he is a good resource, and he's going to do some stuff for bird dogs. So that's great. So if you're a holdover from my bird dog days, you know that I would basically be anti-Wi-Fi, and so much so that I was kind of anti-Wi-Fi when we were coming out with Wi-Fi cameras right before I stepped away from bird dog. And the reason being is Wi-Fi is really hit or miss. I mean, Wi-Fi 6 is great. Wi-Fi 7 is going to be cool. But when you're dealing with when you're talking the difference between like 10 megs on your network, when you're getting to that sort of granular level, Wi-Fi really isn't in the realm of reliability because it will fluctuate and fluctuate greatly. And we've experienced it here on this show that happens all the time, that, the network fluctuates and then I get drops or I get kicked off or whatever. And it was just awful. I went back to wired networks and seriously noticed a massive difference. Just with installing these devices alone, I noticed a massive difference in terms of reliability. Talking with people, talking with my employers that I work with now, they were saying, yeah, everything's nice and clear. You're never dropping. It's very solid. I visit with my family once a week, which are back in Toronto, and my sister lives in Texas. And so that's been a massive improvement. I've just overall, my kids' gaming experience, that has been way better, as long as I don't, change features on the router, which I forget that they're doing things on the internet, and then I do that, and then their kids are like, hey, we got kicked off. Anyway, so I have noticed a major difference in reliability. In one of the things that I do is I stream hockey games, for example. So last night, the Maple Leafs got spanked by the Panthers. Panthers? Who was it? Anyways, they got destroyed. And yes, the Panthers. And it was hard to watch, but not as hard as it was previously, because at least the internet signal was solid, and I was able to watch the entire thing over my hardline network. Now, get this. I have this network is literally talking. This computer and that computer and that computer are literally hardlined to the main switch that is in the network cabinet downstairs. And then I have a hardline running to the network box that's running all of my theater stuff in my living room. And that box is now essentially hardlined to the computer that I use to stream the hockey games. And so I'm able to hardline the Google Chromecast that I'm using into the network switch, into the Mocha adapter, which goes back to the router, which goes back to this Mocha adapter, this switch, that computer, and it's all gigabit all the way through. Instead of relying on Wi-Fi to transmit it down to the router, which in a topographical world is simplified, but like I said, your connection between access points fluctuates greatly. So much so that I don't think marketing would really want to tell you how greatly it fluctuates. And, they say, oh, it's great for 10 or 15 or 20 devices to connect all simultaneously. I wouldn't believe that. I've read enough marketing material, not only in the NDI world, but in the networking world, and that those numbers are written by marketing departments, not by the engineers. Okay, they do independent testing, usually a QA guy, and they find out what the maximum transfer rate is at any given time. But you really need to stress things over long periods of time, and the difference between then Wi-Fi and hardline is still astronomical. The general rule of thumb in the networking world is that Wi-Fi networks are 2 generations behind wired networks. It's just a given. There are switches coming out that are 40 gig throughputs, all right, that are economically coming out, meaning that they will be tangibly affordable in the next 2 to 3 years. They're 40 gigs. Each port is 40 gigs, all right? There are fiber networks that are way ahead of their time, ahead of any sort of like throughput that you need, that are hundreds of gigs, that can go hundreds of miles. And so when we're talking wired networks, people tend to resort to, well, I'm not going to need that. I'm not going to necessarily need that sort of speed. For the same money that I spent on those stinking Netgear access points, for the same money, actually way less money, you can get your home network, you can get your office network wired correctly with everybody with a hard wire and provide some mediocre Wi-Fi, but you can get everything at basically best speeds for the same price as buying the latest, Wi-Fi adapters like Orbits or something stupid like that. Don't spend $1,200 on a 3-pack of wireless things and think, all right, now I don't have to worry about. I would 100% prefer a wired network that gives me gigabit all the way through, or 10 gig if you're so inclined. These little Trendnet Ethernet Mocha adapters are going to be a 1 gigs all the way through. I believe the 2.5 adapters, do they just support more nodes? No, it's up to 16 nodes. You can connect 16 of these? Oh, my word. Mocha 2.0, 1.1, 1.0, or compatible with Mocha 2.0. So this has more adaptability, but if you're buying all the same and you're converting your house over, then this I don't see. It says backward compatible, so I don't see any real. What's the difference between 2.5? Female RJ45. Let's find out, everybody. Anyway, I would much rather prefer, especially if you're going to go the extra step and you're going to convert it over to a Mocha network, I would much rather prefer that you spend the money and the time wiring your system correctly and then doing access points that can plug directly in and expand your SSID broadcast independently. TP-Link have a bunch, Unify have a bunch, and Google have a bunch. And so those 3 are pretty reliable. If you want to use Google, that's fine. I have some of their smart home devices in here, but I have been throttling back, providing them with too much more data than I need to. I don't know, I just started feeling uncomfortable with how much they knew. And so, but there are great access points out there that can plug directly into so if you have a Ethernet port here in the office, you have an Ethernet port downstairs, you have a Mocha adapter that's providing an Ethernet port somewhere else in the house, you can wire those up and hardline them in so that they give full, bit rate independently, instead of connecting them via some sort of MIMO connection, proprietary radio connection. That is okay in Angus's situation where they self-heal and you're not dead in the water. But that is not a proper solution for long-term use. You really should have a real wire that it's just like, it's the same feeling that I have when it comes to wireless speakers. It's okay if that's what you can afford, or if you are just in a place like my living room. I don't want to drill through the floor. But I learned real fast that multiple wireless speakers is a bad idea. And so I moved my system out of the entertainment closet and into a network closet that sits in my living room. And we just deal with it. It's not so bad. But the experience is thousands of times better, like way better. Everything's crystal clear. Everything is great. And that system works really well now. One sidebar that I will say before I kind of wrap up, because I've been talking for almost an hour. One sidebar that I will say is I have found out that a bunch of the entertainment system is only 10100. So the little switch that I bought is let me find it here. Here it is. The little switch that I bought is a TP-Link SG105E. Wouldn't recommend it for your high-performance networks, but if you're just looking to expand your home network and you need to pass data through, these are performing admirably, and they are gigabit ports. They probably, each port's going to average 300-400 megs throughput consistently. They have an onboard web UI. They have a little horsepower in them, so I actually quite like them. They boot up in about a minute and a half, and it had no real problem assigning them IP addresses through my DHCP. No issue identifying them in the DHCP reservation list. They came up right away. I was able to assign them an IP address through the DHCP reservation list. I reboot them. They came back with that proper IP address, and now I can type in that address and it comes up every time. So they do, however, have a light system on the front that indicates whether you're running 10100 or a gigabit. And that's very convenient, because when I plugged in everything downstairs, I found out all of this stuff is 10100, like the Blu-ray player, which I don't ever need internet on that, but it's nice for like firmware updates. Again, that will never come out because that Blu-ray player is old. But I was surprised the first gen Google Chromecast was 10100, and I wondered maybe that might be part of the streaming issue on that thing. Now, get this. I had actually no, that is not the Gen 1. The Gen 1's up here. The Gen 2, which was the 4K version, that's the one that's downstairs. And the 4K version has a little Ethernet port on it, on the plug. And so you plug it into the wall, and then you plug your Ethernet into it, and then that provides wired internet to the Google Chromecast, which is really cool. However, it is only 10100 internet, which I thought was very strange. So they make a little adapter, I found out, that might work. I haven't purchased it yet. It's sitting in my shopping cart. But they basically, it is, I would be getting this one. So this little guy is, what is that, USB, micro USB? And it allows you to plug in the power adapter, that's micro USB, into this unit, but then add gigabit Ethernet to this little box, and then that plugs into the Google Chromecast. And then you'd have gigabit speeds going in. So I don't know if it would work. Both of the Chromecasts that I have a micro USB adapter to them, and we could definitely use some upped speeds. And I was able to find that out because I bought that little switch that TP-Link SG105, and it read back a yellow link light, which means that it's running 10100. So fascinating. I thought that was the case, and that I was only getting 100 megs to that device. Now, do I need a gig? No, I sure don't. But would I like a gig? You know the answer to that. Yeah, it was super temporary. That wire got fixed as soon as possible. The throughput was atrocious over the mesh. And I think that's the theme of today's show is throughput over mesh sucks. Still does, always has. I haven't seen an exception to this rule. I thought I got away with something with the Google ones, so the original Google Home Wi-Fi units. They were cylinders, like they were about yay big. They were like little squat guys. They had a white light in the middle, but they had a sharp edge. The ones now are like a little egg, or like not an egg, but yeah, something like an egg. And these ones had like sharp edges on the top, and they had a white light around them. I liked them so much back in the day before I knew a whole lot about cybersecurity. I liked them so much I recommended them to a bunch of people because they're very consistent and they talk to each other on a proprietary wavelength. They seem to keep their connection really solid. They never dropped too much. The performance on the Nighthawk Netgear MR70s is not the same. It's worse. And so let me tell you, though, something that changed. When I bought the router and I converted all the stuff over to hardline, I then converted those access points to AP mode only. And on the AP mode, oh, I can't show it to you here. On AP mode only, it basically turns those access points into nothing but repeaters for your network. So they check to make sure that you have the Wi-Fi password, and then they pass the data along to the DHCP reservation list. I did notice when I stopped requiring the Nighthawk Netgear, it's the other way around, Netgear Nighthawk MR70s, when I stopped asking them to do anything but broadcast the SSID, it was a lot more consistent. It was a lot quicker, first of all. I was getting IP addresses a lot faster because the actual TP router was doing its job. And that's its job. That's buy the thing to do the thing you need it to do. Don't buy a Swiss Army knife. And I broke my rule. And I'm really frustrated with myself that is what happened, that I broke the rule that I had made long ago of don't buy a Swiss Army knife and expect it to perform well. But when I moved here, I thought, you know what? Technology has moved along. It's 2024. This is going to not be the case anymore. I was wrong. I was really wrong, really wrong. Buy a router, buy access points that are only access points, buy proper switches, hardline everything. Do it if you care about getting the network speeds from your internet service provider up to your office or over to that place in your house. Hardline that stuff. And if it's like, I can't, you have to figure out a way how to do it. And you can do it with cheap coax, I found out. Or you could run fiber, which I would prefer. But you could run fiber through the house and get max speeds. But seriously, hardline everything. Physical connections will always outperform Wi-Fi. At least that's the way it is now. I have yet to see a device that's economically priced, that's under $250, just to throw a number out there, a device that's under $250 that performs better or as good as the wired network. And I don't think you can get there. The reason being is, if the wire is the standard, if it's running 10 gigs or even 1 gig solid all the way through, you can do a stress test on that wire. It will give you gigabit speeds over a 5-minute period, and it won't burn up the device. Funny story about burning up devices, by the way, right in a second. The Wi-Fi can take that connection and do as good or less. It's a neutral or negative outcome. It will never be neutral and better. It will always be neutral or worse. And I have yet to find a device that is neutral. It's always worse. Even with the Google stuff, it was always worse. So there you go. There is the tip of the day. It just doesn't work the way that you think it is. Now, I have been having Twitch issues the entire show, it appears. It's a neutral or negative outcome. Yeah, okay. It's here. It's just not great. All right. So remember that when you are buying access points, when you're talking to internet service providers, when you're looking at network gear, it's going to be a neutral or worse outcome to what you currently have in terms of speed. So if you're at the router, you're plugged in and you're getting 100 down and 30 up, that's as good as the outcome's going to be, hardlined. When you start adding other devices in the chain, it's going to start lowering that threshold. And so your expectations over Wi-Fi need to be really low to begin with. I mean, exceptionally low. And if you're going to wire things, you should expect to have basically that full throughput all the way through. So there is like a tractor or something outside. I wonder if that's my neighbor. Let's find out. I have cameras. He said he was going to come by, I think, with his tractor. And so let's take a look at the driveway real quick. Driveway. Ooh, something unrelated. I have been refinishing my kitchen table. I'm sorry, my dining room table. When we bought it, it was quite brutal. It was in rough shape, and I will gladly show you the picture of it in terrible condition because yeah, it was an eyesore at best. Come on now. So when we bought this table, I took a picture kind of like a before. Here we go. This was what the dining room table looked like. And we bought it in this condition. I didn't abuse it, all right? We bought it in this condition, but it came with 8 chairs. It had 3 leaves in it, or like came with 3 leaves. And it was just in rough shape. And I'm pretty sure here at this corner closest to us, where the big scratch is, it was somebody who smoked a pipe or something sat there, because that varnish was just like, it's just black. It was so gross. So we think that's what happened. And I'm going to close down this preview. So we think that's what was going on here, but it's all speculation. I actually bought it from I'm guessing here based on my perceptions of when I picked it up, but from a large Italian family, and just multiple members in an Italian family. So they needed a big table. Comes with 8 of those chairs. You can kind of see them in the back. 8 dining room chairs, and was in really rough shape. Peeling, it was just it wasn't in great condition. So what we would do is when we would have family over, we'd put a tablecloth on it, and it would seat everybody. We put all the leaves in it, and my family I come from has 5 members, and then my sister and her daughter, and my 2 kids, and my wife, and then my mom and dad and my brother. And so there'd be 9 of us, I think. And if you put all the leaves in, everybody has a spot. It's nice and roomy. It's great. So that was, I was really happy to have a table that would seat the whole family, right? That everybody could sit at, because, you don't want anybody to have to sit at the kids' table. That's lame-o. Well, Thanksgiving's coming up, and we are having some people, well, and so is Christmas, mind you. And we are having some people come over who are going to join us for Thanksgiving, and that's fine. But I also have my family, the Canadians, will be coming down around Christmas time, because they normally do. And so what I did was we stripped it right down and sanded it to where all of those damages and stuff were taken care of. And so this was it, stripped of all of those blemishes and everything. You can see the same corner that I showed you where the smoker was. That is now nice and clean for the most part. That big giant scratch that was in the table is now 2 little nicks. So it's this guy right here. There's a little nick in the wood, and you can kind of see a little bit of the drag. And then there was another little nick on this side that had to be, if I sand it anymore, I'll go right through the table. So it's not laminate. It's actually solid oak, I believe. But when we sanded them, we found out that the leaves in the table are a different wood. So it's going to look a little different when it's done. But we did put the leaves together. We snapped it all together because the next step was to start staining it and then putting some polyurethane on it. So this is a small skill that I have, worked on over the years. Actually working with wood. I did some stuff at a previous home that we owned. So we went from, this is cool. Okay, so this was that shot. of that table that was sanded. And then the next was this is the stain on the table. So matches the chairs. You can see my messy garage area, but it matches the chair color fairly well. Restored a lot of the color. Looks pretty good. You can see those leaves are a slightly different wood, but that's okay. We'll figure that out one day. And then I took a second picture just to kind of, this is more true to the color of what it looks like in, IRL. So that was that color. And then 3 coats of polyurethane. So now that same corner, when was this picture taken? I think, was this last night? Yes. So the last coat of polyurethane was applied. There were 3. It's not super even. And it might be because it's a natural wood or whatever, but it certainly is a lot better than it ever was. And so this looks really good, especially from afar. If you get close, you can kind of see the different layers of polyurethane. And the issue is the table is so long that you have to do full strokes all the way across to not get any sort of bumps or whatever. So that's kind of it, almost finished. After the show today, which is coming up here in about 10 minutes, after today's show, I got to go downstairs and I got to put a finishing wax on this. And we'll put the wax on, let it harden, and then buff it and put it in the dining room. So this is literally ready to be eaten on today. Now, light use is what it says, but the wax will actually help kind of seal it up, and then you put it back into service. And then if something happens, if the wax looks bad after dinner today, then we will, I'll just re-wax it. That's all it takes. So pretty excited about that. I think it looks tons better than what it did. If you keep that image in your mind real quick, and then just take a look at the original. That's the original table. That's what it was, and then this is what it is now. So yoink, so much better. Now the leaves are in this shot. So, that's fully extended, but that will fit my whole family and a whole meal. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think it looks really good. The wife is quite happy with it. So, hey, it looks great. Thank you, Angus. I've been working all week on it. So, yes. And this will be a table that my family will eat around now for many, many years. So not just my extended family, but it will now live in the kitchen. So the kitchen dinette area. And our older dining room table will go to storage for the time being. So good stuff. Well, so if I can summarize today at all, I would 100% strongly recommend, if you have a old Coax network in your home and you know the smallest amount about how Coax works, and you're easily trainable, I would recommend highly that you check out Ethernet over Coax adapters, which turn your old Coax network in your house into usable data transmitting networks. And that means I'm hardlined from here all the way down to Starlink to the satellite and into space. And so I'm very happy with these. They have been a big lifesaver. I have added a few small 5-port switches in key places, one in the theater, one in the living room area for my theater stuff, and one here in the bonus room to add all of my streaming stuff, which is now all hardline. So it has been great. I've actually noticed loading like Netflix on Chromecast and stuff is way faster than it ever was. And so really happy with that. High quality images on all of those 4K devices now. Really happy with it. So strongly recommend that you hardline everything. That rule has not changed. I will openly admit that I was wrong, that I thought, it's 2024, probably isn't, I shouldn't be so hard on Wi-Fi. Nope. I stand corrected once again, and hardline everything. Do not rely on wireless for anything that's even remotely mission critical, even remotely long-term critical. Figure out a way to wire all of your devices together so that you get the maximum throughput and that your online experience, network experience, streaming experience, gaming experience, everything is ideal. So one thing that I was talking just to finish this up is I caught Balu on his live stream this week. So many of you remember a buddy of mine from the Bird Dog days, Balu. He's a gamer, and he also worked for me at Bird Dog. And I caught him playing games on Twitch the other day, and I thought, I kind of live in a world where I might be able to do that again. So I might start streaming gaming over on Twitch every now and then. So maybe subscribe to me there. I, of course, am John O'Canute over there as well. But this show is streamed there, and I might start gaming over there again because I have some time, and it's not super critical, and I'd love to start growing community in multiple ways. And so maybe I'll play a game or two over there. And now that I'm hardlined, I actually could, and it won't drop out, and it won't be brutal. So, of course, do I do it? No. One thing that I need to figure out then is game capture devices. I could play those games off of my old computer and stream it through vMix here, or I could buy a capture card and play them off of this device. So I'm looking for suggestions, something economical. I don't mind spending a little bit of money on it. I may even go as far as to get an enclosure and do something like that. Or I need to open up my computer and see how many more PCIe Express slots I have. I don't think I have any because I have a big graphics card in there. So I need to figure that out. But open to suggestions as to what I could be doing to capture gaming stuff, because as I recall, screen capture was not great. So, Angus, this is the way. This is the way. And I need that sound effect back because, I need to get my act together. I need to get this show put together again. Anyway, thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming along. I really appreciate you. Happy Thanksgiving to all my American friends out there. And even if you're not a friend, happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you are doing well. And the suggestion right now is NDI scan converter. See, I thought about that. Maybe we'll give that a go. Maybe we'll test next week. We will test NDI scan converter while playing games. Let's do that. I'll put that up, and that will be the plan. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Angus, and thank you, Randy. Although I know you're gone, thank you for jumping in the chat, keeping things alive, and hopefully you guys have found some of this helpful, enlightening. The tools that I've used and the things that I'm trying out to make my network better has definitely helped. So be well, everybody. Take care of yourselves. And we will see you all next week as we try to maybe play some video games and figure out how to capture, see what the performance is like while capturing the gaming that's happening on this machine. So I don't know if I want to do it all in one place. I don't know if I want to require this computer to do it all. But if there's a computer in my fleet that could do it, this one probably could. So actually, what about using OBS game capture out to NDI or vMix desktop capture? Possible. We will give all of these items a fair shake in the next coming weeks and give them a try. So, all right, I got a jet. Take it easy, everybody. Be well. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.